The bobcat's golden eyes reflected the flashlight beam from the dark corner of the steel cage. She pressed herself against the wall, her gaunt body covered in wounds. Staff at Northwood Sanctuary had found her during a raid on a wildlife trafficking ring, where dozens of animals were kept in terrible conditions. This bobcat, named Quinn, seemed the most deeply traumatized, not physically, but spiritually. For 3 months, she refused to eat when humans were present, unresponsive to any rehabilitation efforts. Dr. Sarah Jensen flipped through the rescue file. Quinn had been confiscated in a joint operation between local police and forest rangers. The traffickers claimed she was purchased from a poacher operating in various wildlife preserves. No one knew where she came from or how long she had been captive. After numerous unsuccessful approaches, Sarah decided to contact Cameron Wade, a bobcat ecologist who had withdrawn from academic circles 2 years earlier. Under ancient pine canopies, Cameron's small log cabin stood nearly 40 miles from the nearest settlement. He had lived there alone since the climbing accident that took his wife, Lauren. Each morning, Cameron rose early, drank bitter black coffee, and checked his work emails out of habit, though he rarely responded. Most emails were deleted immediately. Sarah's email nearly shared this fate until Cameron scrolled past the attached photo. He froze. The bobcat's distinctive golden eyes stared directly into the camera, and the fur pattern around her face felt eerily familiar. Cameron enlarged the image, his heart beating faster. This couldn't be coincidence. 2 days later, he arrived at Northwood Sanctuary. He asked Sarah for all available information about Quinn: weight, length, estimated age, condition when rescued. He also requested time alone with the animal. Sarah reluctantly agreed, surprised by the sudden interest from the once renowned scientist. Cameron sat before Quinn's enclosure for 4 straight hours, taking dozens of photographs from every angle. Initially, the bobcat hid, but she gradually relaxed as Cameron sat quietly, allowing him to observe her coat more clearly. That evening, in a motel room near Northwoods, Cameron opened his laptop and retrieved an old external hard drive he hadn't accessed since leaving Eagle Ridge. Inside were 5 years of research data on the bobcat population, particularly the pair called Ember and Wilder, whom he had monitored closely. Cameron placed Quinn's photos alongside images of Ember and Wilder. Each bobcat had unique facial fur patterns, like human fingerprints, partially inherited, causing offspring to display a combination of parental features. He magnified the details, marking similarities. The white V-shaped fur mark on Quinn's forehead matched Wilder's exactly. The 3 black spots on her right cheek resembled Ember's. Most importantly, the golden eyes, a rare genetic trait from Ember's bloodline. Through the night, Cameron meticulously checked his research journals. The last time he saw Ember was May 12, 2020. She showed no signs of pregnancy. Cameron left Eagle Ridge in June, after Lauren's accident. Based on Quinn's estimated age, about 2 years old. Judging by dental development and body size, her birth likely occurred around July or August 2022. This meant Ember became pregnant after his departure. All evidence aligned. Quinn wasn't just any bobcat. She was Ember and Wilder's daughter, poached as a cub. This truth kept Cameron awake. Eagle Ridge was a strictly protected reserve, yet someone had stolen a cub, not just any bobcat, but the offspring of the pair he had dedicated his career to studying. Cameron looked again at Quinn's photo. She wasn't merely a rescue case. She represented a living connection to the research he had abandoned, to the bobcat family he had observed for thousands of hours. Moreover, she signaled a larger problem: the poaching of precious wildlife from protected reserves. Now, Quinn was withering in a steel cage, disconnected from her origins. Quinn is Ember and Wilder's daughter, Cameron explained to Sarah. The fur patterns, spot configurations, and especially those golden eyes, they match perfectly. Sarah examined the data skeptically. If that's true, she was poached from a reserve 500 miles away. What does this mean for her rehabilitation? Cameron stated directly, "I want to take Quinn back to Eagle Ridge. Find Ember if she's still alive, and attempt to reintegrate her into her natural environment." Sarah protested. "That's unbelievable. Quinn has no hunting skills, no survival experience in the wild. Besides, there's no guarantee Ember is alive or would recognize her cub after 2 years." Cameron remained resolute. For the next 2 weeks, he spent every waking hour with Quinn. He brought recordings of Eagle Ridge sounds and sent samples from Ember's territory. Initially, Quinn remained huddled in her corner, but she began approaching the cage mesh when Cameron sat reading, her ears perking at sounds from her homeland. Cameron introduced natural element spine branches, river rocks, soil samples from Eagle Ridge and created puzzle feeders mimicking the challenges of finding food in the wild. Quinn's progress was remarkable. Within days, she demonstrated dormant bobcat behaviors. Her one-stall coat regained luster, her muscles strengthened, and the vacant look in her golden eyes was replaced by alertness and curiosity. The sanctuary staff observed Quinn's transformation with amazement. She began climbing artificial trees in her enclosure, practicing balance and coordination needed in the wild. Cameron documented her improving condition, creating a special diet, transitioning her from sanctuary meals to prey she'd encounter at Eagle Ridge. By the second week, Quinn consumed whole rabbits using hunting techniques she had never been taught. Sarah, though concerned, couldn't deny the progress. She arranged for a lightweight tracking collar, designed to dissolve after 18 months, to monitor Quinn's vital signs and location once released. The sanctuary board convened an emergency meeting and Washlast, after reviewing Cameron's data, granted conditional approval for Quinn's transfer. On the 6th night, Quinn took meat from Cameron's hand through the cage gap, a major breakthrough. Sarah couldn't hide her amazement. Cameron modified an old pickup truck, designing a transport enclosure with ample space and small windows for Quinn to observe the scenery. It contained familiar items from her sanctuary habitat to minimize stress. He mapped a route with strategic stops in natural areas, gradually exposing Quinn to wilderness sounds and smells. On departure morning, Quinn voluntarily entered the transport cage, requiring neither force nor coaxing. Sarah provided emergency contacts along the route, wildlife specialists who could intervene if Quinn showed severe stress. With preparations complete, Cameron began the journey that would either heal 2 broken souls or confirm some wounds cannot be mended. The pickup left Northwoods at dawn. Quinn stood in her enclosure, watching the changing landscape through mesh windows. Cameron drove carefully, avoiding rough roads that might disturb his cargo. When they passed from suburban areas into wilderness, Quinn became more alert, her nostrils flaring at the scents of pine and wild grasses drifting through the ventilation. After 3 days, Cameron noticed distinct changes. At evening stops in remote forests, he parked in clearings surrounded by natural habitat. Observation cameras in the transport cage documented Quinn's responses to wilderness sounds, her ears tracking bird calls, her body tensing at deer scents. During the second night, camping beside a stream, Cameron positioned Quinn's enclosure where she could see water when raccoons appeared. Quinn displayed textbook stalking behavior, crouching low, eyes focused, muscles tensed. The journey became a rehabilitation program. Cameron selected stops to expose Quinn to ecosystems, grasslands, mixed forests, then dense pine wilderness like Eagle Ridge. He noted her growing interest in natural sounds and movements. Quinn's diet reflected this transition, with food hidden in complex puzzle boxes mimicking wild prey challenges. By the 4th day, she used claws and teeth to extract food from wrapped packages, showing persistence and problem-solving essential for survival. At night, Quinn occasionally answered distant wolf howls, her voice growing confident, replacing the timid sounds from her first days. Cameron told Quinn about Eagle Ridge, describing Wilder, Ember, and the mountains of her birthright. He wasn't sure how much she understood, but her golden eyes followed him attentively. He maintained contact with Sarah, sending reports and video documentation. The tracking collar showed Quinn's heart rate and stress levels decreasing as they moved from civilization. Sarah connected Cameron with specialists who confirmed Quinn's reawakening instincts. On the final night before Eagle Ridge, Cameron camped at Thunder Mountain's base. As moonlight filtered through pines, Quinn paced eagerly. Responding to nocturnal bird calls specific to the region, she tracked a rabbit near the truck, her movements mirroring Ember's hunting techniques from years earlier. On the 5th day, they reached Eagle Ridge as autumn gave way to winter. From a hilltop, Cameron gazed at the familiar Valley Silver Creek, Whisper Cliffs, the northern forest where Wilder hunted. The landscape was painted in amber and crimson, with snow dusting distant peaks. For Cameron, it was a bittersweet homecoming, a place of professional achievements and personal loss. Quinn let out a powerful adult bobcat vocalization, pawing at the enclosure's mesh, her body language showing recognition. This was no longer foreign terrain. Something in her blood knew these mountains as home. Cameron opened the cage. Quinn stepped out hesitantly, her paws touching Eagle Ridge soil for the first time since birth. She sniffed the air, whiskers twitching as she processed the scents. For several minutes, she stayed beside the truck, then, with a final glance at Cameron, disappeared into the forest, her golden eyes reflecting the sun before vanishing among the pines. Cameron established an observation post on a cliff, tracking Quinn through binoculars. Initially hesitant, she grew confident. By the 4th day, she attempted hunting, though clumsy. On the 5th day, Ember appeared from the forest holder, but unmistakable with her golden eyes. Cameron awaited a reunion, but Ember growled threateningly. Quinn stood motionless, confused. When Ember advanced, Quinn fled, emitting pleading sounds. The situation grew complex. Cameron learned Ember had a new mate, Storm, a scarred male who viewed Quinn as an intruder. Wilder had died fighting poachers 2 years earlier. Quinn faced challenges: clumsy hunting, territorial confusion, and unfamiliar bobcat social rules. Cameron tried placing food but realized his mistake. Human scent on the food isolated Quinn further. He withdrew, letting her find her way. Winter descended harshly. Quinn struggled, but gradually awakened deeper instincts, learning to hunt, finding a rock den, and avoiding Ember and Storm's territory. One night, a violent snowstorm struck, toppling trees. One crushed Cameron's observation tent, trapping him with an injured leg. In the bitter cold, with deep snow and darkness, his chances of being found seemed non-existent. Simultaneously, a fire erupted at the reserve's edge, likely from lightning. Wind spread the flames toward Ember and her cubs. Storm fled, but Ember tried moving her young, who were too slow from her rock den. Quinn smelled Cameron's injury and heard Ember's panicked cries, torn between two worlds. Quinn glanced at Cameron, then ran toward Ember. She found Ember and her cubs in a rock alcove, flames approaching. Using a narrow passage she had discovered, Quinn guided them to safety near a stream. Ember hesitated but followed as flames closed in. Instead of staying, Quinn returned to the dangerous area, locating Cameron where smoke and fire approached. She emitted loud calls, attracting forest rangers searching after spotting the fire. Quinn stayed beside Cameron despite the flames. The rangers rescued him, but when they approached Quinn, she retreated into the forest shadows, watching from a distance as Cameron was carried away. 3 months later, Cameron returned to Eagle Ridge as head of Bobcat research. He often spotted a golden-eyed bobcat observing from afar. Quinn had found her place in Ember's family, accepted after saving them from the fire. Ember recognized her not through scent or appearance, but through her courageous actions. Even Storm accepted Quinn, allowing her to hunt in shared territory. Yet Quinn never fully abandoned the human world, occasionally appearing near Cameron's research station, distant enough to stay wild, close enough for him to document. She became a bridge between worlds, aiding Cameron's insights into bobcat behavior. One dawn, Cameron saw Quinn leading her own cubs, a new generation of Ember and Wilder's bloodline, across a meadow. She paused, glancing at Cameron as if acknowledging their connection before guiding her cubs into the forest. Cameron smiled, feeling fulfilled. Quinn had found her path neither fully wild nor tamed, but a perfect balance. She had helped Cameron rediscover himself, a man belonging to both civilization and the wild's call. Cameron's new research on reintegrating poached wildlife gained scientific attention and strengthened reserve security, preventing similar poaching incidents. Quinn hadn't just saved herself, but protected future bobcat generations. Sometimes, when darkness fell over Eagle Ridge, a golden-eyed bobcat's call echoed through the valley, no longer solitary, but the confident voice of a creature who had found where she truly belonged.